Hello everyone, welcome to the lesson An Elementary School in a Slum. This is the second part. We'll be discussing the theme, central idea of the poem, and metaphors and similes used over here, and all the other aspects of the poem. Moving on.
The central idea of the poem. An elementary school classroom in a slum is a hard hitting poem by Stephen Spender which questions the socio-economic setup that dictates the way in which the childhood and education of countless nameless children of the poor are affected. Adopting a somber, hopeless tone in the beginning, a poetic voice verges on the frustration before voicing a vehement appeal for political will and collective effort to shape the children's lives for the better.
The socio-economic dictates of the capitalist society that has formed of education which is used more often than not to sustain the status quo than to serve any meaningful purpose of the children of the poor. At best, it is a form of charity, and at worst, it is a form of exploitation. Because the people in power don't want to change the conditions of these poor people and unnecessarily keep them in the current situation. Severely malnourished children are goaded towards reciting meaningless lines in the form of education. They are given dose after dose of Shakespeare instead of a decent diet and are exposed to limitless maps of the world while at all times being confined to claustrophobic hovels.
The poet resents the fact that rose tinted picture of the perfect world is provided to those who lead utterly imperfect lives. In short, education provides them a glimpse of the ideal life, which doesn't correspond to their lived experience and immediate reality. The poem therefore advocates for the improvement of the living conditions and providing them with the type of education that may reflect the reality they live in and equip them to change it for the better. In the final stanza, the poet appeals to the authorities, teachers, inspectors, and administrators to seriously and sincerely muster the political will and acknowledge the moral responsibility in order to help the children stand for themselves and help them write a history of their own. The central theme of the poem deals with the paradox of teaching elementary school children in a slum. Spender strongly believes that you cannot hope to provide education to children who are poor and hungry. The sense of hopelessness and the lack of a bright future symbolized by the words fog and foggy slum suggests that the very purpose of educating these children has been defeated. Poverty, hunger, hopelessness, and the fact that they are cut off from the rest of the world since they are bound by their poverty is expressed in the words narrow street sealed in with a lead sky. And catacombs lead to the poet's belief that the only solution is to break the town and let the children run free on gold sands, and to let their tongues run naked into the books of white and green leaves. What Spender means is that it is only after the policymakers have addressed the problem of poverty and its attendant problems like malnourishment and inherited diseases that you can hope to provide an education that is empowering in the true sense. The philosophy of the poet here. Stephen Spender's poem, An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum, very aptly encapsulates the philosophy of life, which is based on the themes of social injustice and class inequalities. The poet constantly highlights his belief in the paradox of poverty, the idea that the more advanced the society, the larger is the gap between the poor and the rich. His philosophy of life exposes the sham that exists in the society today. and so called hollowness in the intentions of the humanitarians of the world who want to do good to the underprivileged by donating gifts which are in effect of no use. Let's discuss some important metaphors. Shakespeare's head. This represents the teaching of the concepts and ideas that the students are not able to relate to because of their impoverished nature. The children are so poor, malnourished, tired, and hopeless that they don't have the luxury of leisure to study works by Shakespeare. Shakespeare is wicked and the map a bad example. Because of their exclusiveness tempts them to steal. It is ironical that by teaching them about Shakespeare, you are in fact teaching the students to steal what they cannot hope to achieve in the normal course of time. They will try to achieve through unfair and illegal means. And this is more so because you have taught these children that Shakespeare is good and the world shown in the map is good. The children will therefore try to achieve the good things in life by hook or by crook. Next, we have nature. The metaphor of nature as a teacher appears in the last stanza, and it is represented in the words gold sands and the books with white and green leaves. The green leaves are the pages of the books of nature. Another important metaphors we have is open-handed map. The open-handed map, rather paradoxically, is a metaphor for slavery or imprisonment because it shuts upon their lives like catacombs. What Spender suggests is that you cannot hope to teach the impoverished children about the real world by showing them the map because they are reminded about the world they live in and the hopelessness that shuts upon them like catacombs. Catacombs is applied to the subterranean cemeteries. What they can relate to, therefore, is not what is shown in the map, but rather the world of poverty and misery that they can see through the windows of their classroom. The windows of the classroom are the true maps that they can relate to and not the open-handed map. Next we have the sun and fog. The sun, incidentally, is a metaphor for freedom as opposed to the fog. Spender makes it clear that history can be written by those whose language is the sun. It is clear that the message that Spender wants to pass on to the readers is that the fruits of education can only be enjoyed by those who are free from the shackles of poverty. Well, the sun is there to lift up the fogs of their lives. That's all. Next, we come to the poetic devices, simile, that can be easily identified by the use of the words like and as. So, we have here like rootless weeds, like bottle bits, and shut upon their lives like catacombs. Metaphor, we have paper seeming boy and rat's eyes.
Thank you, students. That will be all for this lesson. I hope you've understood it pretty well. Thank you.